What is up, Hankiboy here, and today we are doing it different. We won't be talking about the development of Dead Matter, but instead we will look at the closed alpha and more specifically the NDA that will be coming with it. For those of you who do not know, Dead Matter is a pretty ambitious upcoming zombie survival FPS being developed by Quantum Integrity Software, and it's set for a closed alpha sometime in July 2020. And if you wish to support the dev team and back the game, have a look in the description. So I wanted to talk about this NDA because I think it's something that is going to be critical for Dead Matter's success. I honestly think this could be the factor that turns Dead Matter into the next big indie game, and not just another survival game that never really makes it out of early access and falls short on all the promises. Now, if you follow closely the development of Dead Matter, if you're involved in the community, if you are a backer, you probably already know that most backers do support the NDA. But there are arguments to be made on both sides, and we will look at what those arguments are, what I think about them, and hopefully end with a coherent thought on what I personally think of the NDA and why I think it might be critical to the success of Dead Matter. But before we start this, if you haven't pulled the trigger yet on backing Dead Matter, or maybe you did but you would like another game key to share with a friend, check the pinned comment on this vid. There is a link to my Dead Matter base building video, and in there you will find all the info for a contest I'm running for a chance to win a Dead Matter access key. The closed alpha is just around the corner, and I'm giving away that key as soon as we hit 250 subs on the channel, so hurry up and go check that video if you want a chance at winning that key before the closed alpha starts. Alright, so the first thing we need to address here is what is an NDA. Some of you might not know. NDA stands for non-disclosure agreement. An NDA is a legally binding agreement that you will not disclose whatever the NDA says you must not disclose. In Dead Matter's case, the NDA has not been shown yet since the closed alpha is not out, but the most plausible. Now remember, we are in the realm of speculation here. We will not know what the NDA is until we get our hands on it, of course, but most likely the NDA will apply to anybody who accesses the closed alpha. It will cover the entirety of the closed alpha period, and it will be 100% sealed, meaning no sharing footage, no discussing what happens inside the closed alpha, no sharing photos, no commenting. Basically, you do not show it, you do not talk about it. It was stated that backers who have access to the closed alpha will be able to discuss its content inside a dedicated channel on the official Discord, but like I said, until we read the actual NDA, we can only make educated guesses. Now, to some, especially non-backers, this might seem very restrictive, and I think now is a good time to say that I personally agree with the NDA, and I'll try to make my case as best as I can in the next minutes. Now that we know what an NDA is and what Dead Matter's NDA will most likely look like, I think the next point I need to make is how this will affect each part of the community and what it will mean to them. Let's start with the backers. This group is probably the least affected by this, since they will be the ones in the closed alpha. They will have access to the content, they will know what is up, they will be able to discuss the closed alpha with other backers and share whatever issues they encounter with the dev team. The only downside for them really is they will not be able to share their experience with non-backers. Their money is already invested, they hopefully understand that the game is still in early stages, Dead Matter is a work in progress, and bugs, crashes, problems, and downtimes are to be expected. Now we have the non-backers. There is two types of non-backers. There is the non-backer that doesn't really care, he did not hear of the game yet, or maybe he did but he isn't actively following the development, and these guys right here are the ones that make this whole NDA thing so important. And I will discuss why a little bit later. They check back maybe once every few months. Oh, the game is still not out, I'll be back later I guess. These people won't be affected at all. They don't care for a closed alpha, they think Dead Matter is a good concept, but until it comes out, they'll just play something else. Then we have the non-backers who actively follow the development. They are the most inclined to disapprove the NDA, since they probably want to get a glimpse at what is up, but they don't feel comfortable giving money for a game that is in development, which is absolutely understandable. Not everyone can spend $30, $40, sometimes $50 and then hope they get a full game sometimes down the line. And if you fit in this category, I would expect the devs to keep pushing dev blogs during closed alpha, so you will probably be able to see how the game comes along anyways. And then decide if you feel comfortable jumping in at a certain point or you keep your money until the release. Then we have the content creators. Of course, we would love to be able to showcase the gameplay to viewers, but we can't. And this means denying us the opportunity to produce Dead Matter related content. But the same argument can be made here that the dev team will most likely keep pushing dev blogs, and we will most likely be allowed to make content from the dev blogs. And we can absolutely make content out of those. I mean, that's what content creators have been doing for the last 2 years. Finally, we have the developers. The dev team can use the NDA to control what is shown to potential future backers and future buyers down the line. They can choose to bring forward features they feel comfortable showing to the public via a dev blog and keep the more problematic aspects behind the scenes while it's being worked on and tested by backers. Now that we know who will be affected by the NDA, let's take a look at the arguments that are made for and against it. Then I'll give my thoughts on these arguments. Let's start with the arguments against. Now keep in mind, these are not necessarily my stances, but these are arguments I have seen on either the Discord or on Reddit. One that we saw come up a few times is that the NDA won't be enforceable, that enforcing the NDA by banning backers would be in bad taste, and they don't want to see backer money going into enforcing the NDA. Now remember, I will comment on all these arguments after we go through them all. Another argument we saw against the NDA is that it will give less exposure to the game, preventing further backing. Content creators won't be able to show the game and its features, and the backing community won't be able to expose the game to possible buyers. Something else that goes around is that having the closed alpha under NDA shows a lack of confidence in their product, that hiding the product might be covering a scam or is used to hide the lack of progress in the game's development. And lastly, another one that came a few times is that it is not really a closed alpha if anyone can simply buy their way into it. And these were pretty much the arguments against. Now let's look at the arguments for. The main one we saw was the closed alpha was a testing environment, and that stage of the game development should not be made public. Another big one is that a lot of people do not understand what a closed alpha is and might see alpha footage as what the game will actually be, turning them away from the game. And finally, another big one is that first impressions is extremely important for an indie game to pierce, and a closed alpha environment should never be the first impression the general public gets for a game. Now let's take all these arguments and I'll give you my thoughts on them. So an argument made against the NDA is that it won't be easily enforceable. Now yes, I can see how enforcing it could be troublesome on its own and also cost money to the dev team, which I don't want to see either. I want every backer penny going towards the development of the game. Also, taking legal actions against backers could be very poorly perceived. In a perfect world, I would say it is nice that we can rely on the goodwill of everybody, but unfortunately I know that is not the case. And although I do not want for the dev team to go full aggro on enforcing this NDA, I definitely would want to see repercussions for people who break the agreement, because I truly believe having information leaked from inside the closed alpha would be detrimental to the future success of the game, and I will make that point clear in my final thought. To wrap up this point, every backer knows there will be an NDA, every backer will be agreeing to the NDA before gaining access to the closed alpha, and I hope that by the end of this video I will have given you good enough reasons to follow the NDA, if of course legally agreeing to it wasn't enough of a good reason. Now the next argument is the lack of exposure and publicity due to the NDA, and thus less funding since potential backers won't see the product. I will be quick on this one. What happens in closed alpha should stay in closed alpha. A closed alpha isn't a demo, it isn't a show of content, it's the first test for the game. It is the first time every mechanic is taken out of its development bubble, merged together in the world and put in the hands of players to see if they survive or if they need fixing. If you do not expect things to be broken in a closed alpha, you shouldn't be in a closed alpha. And showing broken mechanics to potential buyers isn't a great move in my opinion. Most people do not follow game development closely and have no idea what a closed alpha is and why what they are looking at seems broken. And at a time where we have so many things on which we can spend our money, most people in my opinion would see closed alpha footage, think it's a broken game, turn around and never look back. Now about the NDA being a sign of lack of confidence in the product or a way to hide or cover up a scam. First, I'll be the first to admit this. As far as release dates and delays, the team really dropped the ball. You cannot delay 5 times over the span of 2 years and be surprised that your backers are on edge and start to be suspicious. But to go as far as claiming they are covering a scam, we can see the progress via the dev blogs, and we can also see the team developing via live streams. Like, what, are they just faking it? It's all a setup? If it was a scam, I believe we simply would not hear from them. As far as a lack of confidence in the product, I think that's just a very pessimist way of saying what is actually going on. I mean, the NDA is exactly that, them not wanting to show the product as it is being worked on and fixing the problems that arises. But to go as far as a lack of confidence, I mean, why would they show something that at best will be well perceived but won't represent the final game anyway, or at worst will be misinterpreted and seen as the final product? Why even take that risk? I mean, I regularly see people on the Discord complaining that things in the dev blogs doesn't seem polished. It isn't even closed alpha yet and people are saying things aren't polished. And for the final argument against that it's not really a closed alpha since we can simply buy our way into it and they are basically selling the game, I would agree if it wasn't made obvious this game was in development. Also, I think people need to understand what backer means. You need to see this more as an investment. You're putting your money up front in the hopes to get something later. And I remember someone using that argument on Reddit and someone replied in the lines that it wasn't an investment since we won't be getting dividends or shares in the company or something like that. I think that's a way too literal and narrow understanding of investment. I'm not talking about stock investments here. I mean, I can invest in my health by buying training equipment. I won't get dividends. I can invest in my friend who likes to paint by buying him a quality paintbrush and he'll give me a painting and he'll get better at painting, making me happy. I still won't get dividends or share in his painting company, I guess. I can invest in a game dev team that I believe have a good game concept and I will get the game when it's done. And as far as it not really being a closed alpha, I get where this comes from, but I think this is more of a semantics thing. I get that anyone can get into the closed alpha, but there is still a door people have to go through to get in. Now, for the argument supporting the NDA, closed alpha is for testing and the public doesn't need to see this phase as they might take this for what the actual game will be. Now, this one I agree with totally. I know this is not everybody, but a lot of people don't get what testing is and why a game looks broken in a testing phase. Some do, and most of the people who do are already backers anyways. This argument is aimed towards non-backers who are waiting for the full release, and I think that showing them raw closed alpha content, all that will do is risk spooking them. And final argument 4, first impression is extremely important. I won't get too much in detail here since this is pretty much the main argument I'll make in my final thoughts. Alright, so now that we looked at everything surrounding the NDA, let's try to wrap this up in a coherent thought. I really feel like I've been shooting from the hip and in all directions these last few minutes, and I hope I make some sort of sense here. So I think the NDA is essential, but why? As you probably know, I've played plenty of survival games, but not only that, I play all types of games, from Minecraft to Civ 6 to board games to sports. I absolutely love playing games, whatever the form, and maybe you're like me, but I've always had that that dream game in the back of my head, you know, and Den Matter so far ticks pretty much every box of my dream game. So not only do I honestly believe Den Matter has the potential to be the next big thing, but I really hope it will be the next big thing. That being said, to be the success it could be, Den Matter needs to tick every box of what they said was going to be in game. And although they did raise over 1 million in crowdfunding, I do not think that's enough to deliver on the promises. They will need more money to keep working and pushing out quality content after release. And for that to happen and really be on the scale they say they want to be, they are going to need a lot of people joining the player base at launch, and they will need to stick around. And I believe Den Matter absolutely has the potential to do this, but they will get only one chance at doing this. And this is why the NDA is crucial. Some of us love to follow a game's development, but most people do not care or do not have the time to do so. And the first bit of gameplay and reviews they see about a game is what they will base their opinion on. So if the main bulk of potential buyers see closed alpha footage and that is their first impression, they will think that is what the game is going to be, buggy, broken, and unpolished, and they will not be there for release. They will have found another game to spend their money on. That means less money for the dev team. That means less development and longer development time for the content they need to push out after the release to tick all the boxes, thus creating a snowball effect of bad reviews, bad taste in players' mouths, and dwindling player base, simply because the first impression did not do its job. I mean, how many times have we seen this? Games going into alpha early access, but the game is unplayable, it's broken. Yes, it does say in the description it's a work in progress, but it doesn't stop the bad reviews from piling in, and for me at least, I do base some of my buying decisions on the reviews. And I tell myself I'll come back later to see if the game has progressed in the right direction, and then I forget everything about that game and I move on. And that is basically why I think the NDA is important. It is to ensure the first impression for potential buyers is a good one, so people jump on board and the dev team has a good cash flow to move the game where it has to go to be the game they pitched. Now I will add to this, I hope, or at least I think it would be a good move for the dev team to give 1 or 2 weeks of early access to the full release game to the backers. First as a thank you, but also as a little promotion period that content creators and the community will be able to do for the game to make sure that buyers are lined up for the release. And there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope now you understand why the NDA is important if you didn't already. As usual, if you have something to say about this, there is the comment section below. If you have arguments for or against that I haven't talked about, I'm always open to other opinions, of course. Also, if you join my Discord, links in the description, I'll have a poll up in there to see what video you would like to see next. And remember, if you enjoyed this, I would really appreciate it if you took a few seconds of your time to subscribe and like the video. It means a lot, and I will see you in the next one.